What's up, everyone? It's your host, Jonah. Welcome back to the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show. And if you're new, thanks for tuning in. Smash that follow button so you don't miss any new content. Today we have Isaac Mashman, a young entrepreneur, author, and podcaster building his own empire. And today we get a small peek behind the scenes of his success. Isaac, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me, man.
Jonah, man, honored to be here. Thank you for the invitation, man. Great to be talking this Tuesday evening.
Sweet. So let's dive into a little bit about you, your businesses. We were talking a little bit, and you told me an interesting fact of how you started so young. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're jumping right into the thing that I usually don't lead with, but I'm fine with that. It's 100% good. You're like, all right, let's get the questions out of the way. Yeah, man. I mean, I started my businesses, like my business ventures, so to speak, the curiosity of business, the curiosity of what is out there. In 2017, I was actually a senior in high school at that time. So going into my senior year of high school, I was lost. I was confused. I was like, great student, excellent student. I've said this many times before, and I will continue saying it. It's like, I'm not one of those entrepreneurs that was like a D or F student. I was straight A's, man. Like I got 1 C in my life and had to get tutoring to bring it up. And so I was on track to go to college, got accepted to Florida State, University of Central Florida, 10 SAT points away from a full ride scholarship. And I said, I'm not taking the SAT test again. I do not care on my AP exams. And here we are. A fun fact, I was in network marketing in my senior year. I actually joined, I was getting ready to join the company. And during my test, rather than filling out and taking the AP literature test, my teacher was probably like, Isaac, why did you score a 1? I was writing out how I was going to build out my team. I literally was sketching the entire time. I didn't care about the test because I'm like, I'm not going to college. It doesn't mean anything. So that's how focused I was on business. But since then, man, since graduating, May 29th was the four-year anniversary mark of me walking the stage and getting that shit and chapter over in my life. And it's been great, man. A lot of challenges, a lot of ups and downs. Launched my current business, my vehicle, smack dab at the very beginning of the pandemic. So yeah, it's been good.
So which business is that?
So that's Mashman Ventures, and that is the number one focus that I have, and that is a public relations firm. I have 2 other businesses that I'm working on building, but the kind of businesses that they are rely heavily on cash flow and capital. And how do you get capital and cash flow without raising external money and getting investors and all that stuff? And then you give up pieces of your company or pieces of the deal. And I'd rather own what I'm getting invested in. And so Mashman Ventures, my public relations firm, is my vehicle for more and future investments.
So what kind of are the things that you do in your Mashman Ventures when you get clients? So what kind of stuff does that entail?
Yeah, so typical public relations firm focus on bridging the gap between the corporation, like let's take Pepsi or Coca-Cola, and the person walking the aisle at Walmart, going and buying, the Coca-Cola or the Pepsi. If they have a choice, Pepsi or Coca-Cola, based off of perception in their mind or a preference, they're going to go with either soda. But my public relations firm, and where we specialize, is we focus on personal branding solely. And if I were to define, what is personal branding really quick, it would be, it is you, it is who you are. And so I focus on working with business people, creators, authors, really anybody who wants to become well-known for something, well-known as an individual or as a celebrity, to establish their personal brand online and also locally in person. And I mean, I could go into a lot of different details about how we operate, but it's a done with you model. We offer consultations and actual strategizing calls to where we're sitting down saying, hey, this is what you need to do. These are the next steps. This is how you get into the press. This is how you build out your credibility. This is how you position yourself. And it's been a lot of fun, man. Worked with some really, really amazing people over the past couple of years, including some new clients recently.
So what are some of the things that you did before you started the business that kind of helped you along with it?
A big one was network marketing. I mean, I've been involved in 6, 7, 8 different businesses. Honestly, I haven't sat down and been like 1, 2, 3, 4. I could count them on my hand, but I've had dozens of interests. My first one was a clothing line. Did that. I actually have the hoodies hanging up in my office closet right now. It was called Success Before Rest Apparel. If that isn't cliche, I don't know what else is. But I had my first hoodie, man. I made my first, couple bucks online, sold, $5, $10, $20. And I think in total I made less than 100. But the fact of the matter is I made money from people that I never knew, never talked to, never shook their hands of. And I think that was a really eye-opening experience. And then Like I said earlier, I got involved in the industry of network marketing, 3 companies, 4 times. That was the eye-opening experience because I saw these 20, 21, 22, 23, 24-year-old kids making $10,000 a month. And I'm thinking, wow, you made 3 months worth of what my mom makes or two months worth in 1 month, residually, passively. Holy shit. And that kind of opened up my eyes. And then from there, managed musical talent for 6 months, wanted to do record label. And, the interesting thing though is what I was doing at that same time simultaneously was building out my personal brand as this young entrepreneur, this young businessman in the making of, somebody who wanted more out of life.
So you do have a podcast, and is that does that entwine with Mashman Ventures?
Not necessarily. And it's funny. I think you're like the 3rd or 4th person I've talked to in the past 2 days that I've had to tell this. Fun fact, you're the first people to know, but I'm actually ending my podcast and I'm launching a new one later this year. I've had my show for 3 years, but I'm ending Chase the Vision. But a podcast to speak about personal branding is vital for building out your personal brand. It's a great tool, a great tactic to get to connect with people. Like we were talking about the reason why you have the show, man, and just the relationships that you're building, the knowledge that you're soaking up is worth every single, investment, from the microphone you're using to the headphones you're wearing to the computer you bought for this. It's like that is a worthwhile investment. And so I'm going to be launching a brand new show come the end of July.
Can you tell me what it's about, or do you want to keep it a secret?
I have absolutely no idea what the name is. And this is one of those instances where I'm going to have to find the name when I least expect it. I've went through dozens of different names. And I was very picky about my other show, but I feel like Chase the Vision was treading the line of cliche. And so I'm like, it didn't really speak to me anymore, to use that term. And so this new show is going to be a little bit more focused around me and my life and my personality, because it's really easy to get so focused on the educational aspect, you lose the entertaining side. You lose let's go ahead and share a story from your own life that can also be educational in a sense, but it's still entertaining. And so I want to talk more about that. And also I wanted to invoke a feeling of maturity, a feeling of, hey, this is somebody who, you saw his first episode, you saw him grow, you saw him pivot, you did all of these different things. But now with this new show, it's like, I've grown into that man, I've grown into that figure, I've grown into that businessman to where, all of my momentum, a lot of it's been established in the past 18 months. And so if I can keep that going and show that with my podcast from the point where I'm at today to the point where I'm making $1 million a month, it's like, that is how I'm taking people along that process while also sharing what I'm talking about. But I'm not convincing another person that this is a podcast worth listening to. And I feel like Chase the Vision, because of the name, because of the premise, was almost like I was convincing somebody to listen to it. But now I want people to subscribe and come back every single week because they're attached to me, engage with what we're talking about, and engage in the quality.
Did you do any media before Chase the Vision?
So I had another podcast. My very first podcast was recorded February of 2018. So I remember being in my old room at my mom's house and had my shitty Android phone, $80, and I recorded on my Android. It was god awful. So I had my podcast. I mean, I've written articles before. Writing articles is another fantastic tactic to build an authority or talk about something that's interesting, take up search results. There are other things. I mean, you could argue and say that content creation is a form of media, right? And so, I mean, I've been creating content from the time that I got started with all this, but over the years, it's progressed, gotten better, gotten easier, and gotten more results.
Right. And do you work with a lot of, no, I don't want to answer that question. That's a stupid question.
No such thing as a stupid question, man.
No,
ask me.
It was self-explanatory. It was pretty dumb.
Okay. Not a stupid question though, man. No such thing.
Okay, let me reword it. So do you ever do you work with YouTube channels? What's the kind of people that you really shoot for when you're trying to gain a client?
Jonah, man, that's not a stupid question at all. And even in the way that you were going to phrase it previously, that's not stupid. Leave that in the recording. I don't want to hear that edited out. So here's the thing. A YouTube channel is one aspect of your personal brand. So for example, you would create the YouTube channel based around Jonah. That is your personal brand is you as Jonah, not as blue collar enlightenment or empowerment or anything. It's like, it is you. And so when it comes to the YouTube channel, that's one facet of building a strong digital personal brand. You have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You have all these different tools and social media platforms. You have the podcast, which is a form of something that strengthens your personal brand. And so when it comes to going about getting clients, I typically work with a lot of business owners, but I have worked with creators, models before, like literally like chiseled Greek god looking, dudes with flowing hair, with a six pack. Like I've worked with those kind of people, and he's actually a close friend of mine. Authors, especially, and actually, my most recent client that I took on this past week is a psychologist of 20 years with a doctorate. And so I'm like, but that's the thing. Every single person, no matter if you're a 9-to-5er or if you're an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, or a creator, can benefit from growing out their personal brand.
What's an intrapreneur?
Somebody who works in the business close to the owner, but is not the owner. And so a great example would be Eric Chow. He's the chief consultant of my firm, and he is an intrapreneur. He's working close to me. He is my right-hand man, but he's not the one who is having to worry about the same shit I'm worrying about, the contracts, the refunds, dealing with all that kind of stuff. But being an intrapreneur can also benefit you tremendously. Me, I don't like taking orders, or I don't like being that kind of team player, so to speak. So I'm more of that like entrepreneur, like do it myself kind of guy. But entrepreneurship is something that's lesser known, but is lesser talked about, but can be really good for certain people who might not want to be out and about as much.
I get you. So it's the inner circle guys.
Yeah.
I got you. Let's go back a little bit to your business. You said you're opening up 2 more, and I did a little searching, and I seen you were doing investments and properties. So what kind of investments are we talking? Are you talking stock or brick and mortar?
Yeah, well, when it comes to talking about Mashman investments, there are certain tax benefits from a short-term, hold versus a long-term hold when it comes to investment. Like the tax rate is a lot higher if you're going to sell it quickly. And so part of the reason I wanted to launch Mashman Investments was to get that tax break and to just kind of make and invest in financial contracts like stocks, forget about it, and hold on to it, hold my position. But the other side is to also invest in companies and people and ideas. There are a lot of different things right now. I mean, you could go and invest in a crowdfunding platform such as WeFunder and invest in startups that way. Or I know a lot of people personally who have companies or startups that they're working on, SaaS products, plugins even, that I could invest maybe $1,000 in and might have 10% of the company as a silent partner. Whereas somebody who's like there but not really doing anything. And so that's the focus of Mashman Investments and Mashman Properties is going to be for buying real estate. But the thing is, I'm never going to sell any of the real estate I buy.
That's interesting. That's pretty funny because I have been talking with a few people of mine, and I've been thinking about investing, a little bit of money in rent houses. And I've been around where I live. It's starting to get, a lot of people are starting to move in and move out of the big city and into these smaller towns around me. And so I see the opportunity. I just trying to take that step. It's pretty nerve wracking to me, at least.
Take it, man. Take it.
Yeah, because I see a lot of houses on the market that are going pretty cheap for what they should be going for. And I should just be an opportunistic person like I am. I should be taking that time and effort to do that.
Well, and if you're doing let's say a rental that's near a large city, then you're able to go and actually Airbnb it rather than rent it, to where now you have people who are staying for a day or two. That's another strategy. I know some people who are making near 6 figures a month, Airbnb-ing, different properties. And let's say you get one property that's near an airport, people don't want to stay at a hotel. Maybe the hotels are booked up. You have business people that want more privacy, people who want to have, maybe they want to kick out their feet, whatever. Imagine going and, charging $120, $150 a night on top of fees and such per day, per month. You get booked up 20 days of the month. You're making more than double. Right. In an idealistic world than what you would be getting for rent. Now, given rent is going up all around the United States, like right now for what I'm paying here, it's like we could very well just get a mortgage paying for an apartment. And so that's something that, you have to consider. But personally, real estate is one of those assets. I know a lot of people focus on the digital side of things, but I'm like, I want something I could stick a shovel in and be like, this is my dirt. pitch a tent, sleep in the tent, go and build a house. I could build a house, put a trailer, rent out the trailer, whatever it is. It's land, something that is tangible, something that I can feel. And I think that's one of the things that more and more people are failing to realize. But America was built off of people and land. People going and saying, this is my territory, this is my ranch, this is my farm. And I think that aspect of American nature and like what we were built upon as a nation needs to come back and make a resurgence, rather than all of these bigger corporations buying up all the property. Like a timber company, for example, owns 2.2 million acres. One company owns 2.2 million acres of land. 2.2 million. That is gigantic. And that's one company, one corporation. But could you imagine you have 2 million people who own 1 acre or 2 acres or 3 acres?
Yeah, you're right. I've been thinking about doing that myself. On top of that is buying up this land that's been coming up and lotting it out.
Exactly.
Because I know you can make a lot of money having all your utilities there just on the lot itself. Man,
yep.
I'm learning.
RV park, if you buy, let's say, especially you're in Oklahoma, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a lot of people are touristy wanting to mark off Oklahoma or going for, basketball games or whatever. Let's say you do an RV park, and now you have, it would cost money to get it, set up and get it to where it's industrialized, but you get 12 plots, you charge by the day or charge by the week, now you have land making money and people are coming and going. There's so many different ways of monetizing land and also monetizing just real estate in general. And even if somebody was to buy not necessarily the land, but lease the rights to it, you can make money off of being the landowner. For example, a lot of these guys who own the shopping malls that you see around, they don't own the building, they own the land underneath the building. So now they're getting paid for the land and they don't have anything to worry about when it comes to the upkeep of the actual building. They don't have to worry about the roof, but they worry about maintaining the land. So they're getting paid. And that's the other thing, man. A lot of times we get so single focused on what we're doing or what everybody else is doing. We fail to realize, hey, there's some other ways that we could go about this.
Yeah, you just opened my mind to a couple of things. That's pretty interesting.
Good, I did something right.
That's why I brought you on the show. So what's your future of the properties business? Are you like trying to buy up as much as you can, as fast as you can? What's your process about that?
So that's a double-edged sword, because I have one side of the sword that's purely ego-based to say I want to own as much land as I possibly can. Even though I'm not doing anything for it, even though I might not be making anything off of the land. If you own properties and you only pay $100 in property taxes a year, or less than that for a piece of land, it's like, cool. Like I can own that, build my portfolio, build my credibility. And then the other side is looking to get land or make investments and buy houses or apartment buildings or going on deals or something that I'm considering is in a tourist area that we're moving to, Hot Springs, Arkansas, is to go and buy land and put a tiny home on it and then Airbnb that. That's another thing, because a lot of people don't want to stay in they're not about to Airbnb a trailer, but they would Airbnb potentially a tiny home in a tourist town, right? And so that's going to be one of the things. And, scaling that to as big as possible, man, owning hotels, owning shopping malls, owning everything. Because I want to play Monopoly in real life. Like that's one of the reasons why I want to become wealthy, because I am wanting that ability to do whatever I want, whenever I want to. Or if I'm walking down and I'm seeing a building and I'm like, that's a distressed building, or I see opportunity in it, let me buy it. And from there, the opportunities are endless, man. And I think that that's essential when it comes to anybody who has, any sense of more out of life. You got to see opportunities when everybody else thinks that, oh, it's not worth the time.
So what would you tell somebody that's just starting out in it as well?
I mean, I'd say do research. I didn't pay for any coaching or anything of the sorts. I could have, and I know some great people who I might still take up on an offer in the future. But for where I'm at right now, I mean, I'm not in some position to where I own millions of dollars in land or anything. I bought my first 2 properties earlier, but I was surprised at how easy the process was, truthfully. Now, given it takes time to get papers processed and stuff, but look for properties that are in, up for auction. They have tax liens on them. That's something that I was able to get 2 pieces of property for less than $1,000. And one is a 0.09 acre and another is 0.13. Now that might not seem like shit, but that'd be enough to put a house on. That'd be enough to put a trailer on. That'd be enough to, do something and be aware of where you're buying that property. So one of the properties I got was right next to a graveyard. Now, I'm not trying to become rich off of dead people, but eventually the graveyard is going to need to expand. So what will I do? I will sell that land. And now, and even then, because I said I'm never going to sell my land like willingly, but then you have, the city who's like, I'm going to take it anyway. So then I'd be forced to sell it. But being strategic with where you're at, in tourist areas, but looking for properties that are up for auction. So what that means is owners default for paying their property taxes. And after so many years, the state comes in and they say, you didn't pay us anything. It's going back up to public domain. So we're going to auction it off. And you can go in and maybe get land for dirt cheap. Now, given you're going to have competition with these people who are buying land wholesale, but you pay off, let's say 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks in previous property taxes owed, or a couple $100, and you could have an asset that's worth thousands. And then, I really can't speak from a place of buying, hotels or anything like that yet. 2, 3, 4 years from now, I will. But I would say having that long-term vision of, hey, this is a game you're playing in steady levels, it's going to increase in time.
No, this is good because I do play with the stock market, but it's too much for me because I'm too busy to mess with it. And so at the age I'm at now, I really don't need to mess with too much of the stock market because I can't pay attention to it. Got too much going on.
Right. Well, I like the stock market to a degree, but at the same time, it's like a lot of it's speculation. It's funny. I was recently reading, it's called The Empire of Business by Andrew Carnegie, and it's a collection of essays. And Andrew Carnegie was a major American, Scottish-American industrialist who was worth, billions of dollars in today's revenue. I think it's $11 billion, which might not seem like a lot, but pre-internet, pre-inflation, pre-everything. And one of the things he talked about in one of the essays was never to speculate. And that is actually directly translated to playing in the stock market. He said that people who bet their entire fortune and they could become millionaires one day and become bankrupt the next. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. And so it's like the stock market has its perks. Being able to, be an investor in something, have ownership in something is cool. But it's the same reason why I got out of network marketing. I realized that I wasn't actually building my own company. And just like you're a stock owner, you're not necessarily doing shit for the company except making the company valued more. Given you might have perks, but unless you're owning a significant portion, you don't have a say in many things at all. But it is a way to make money, get dividends. You can get significant money. If you throw $100,000 into a dividend paying stock, you could get a few $1,000s a year potentially. But I would rather build a business and have that steady growth and say, maybe if I want to diversify and make some investments, then cool. But that's not where I'm putting all of my focus on.
So when did you make your first dollar? How old were you for real? How old were you when you seen your first dollar?
Young, man. I'd say probably four or five, truthfully. I probably got it from my grandparents. I come from a blue collar home. I do. I don't come from money. I don't come from middle class. I come from, maybe I could argue, lower middle class, but treading the line of poverty to where, never had dental insurance, never had health insurance, never had any of that shit. And my grandfather was a cabinet maker. He'd go, and I remember going with my grandmother early in the morning, man, to the cabinet shop across town over the bridge every morning, smelling the coffee from Maxwell House in Jacksonville, the factory, smelling that coffee every single morning. And man, that's something I haven't thought about in a very long time. And so I was that hard worker that was like digging dirt, in a shovel, like in the yard, helping my grandparents with stuff, helping my grandfather in the shop. And so I imagine I probably got paid then. But then, when I got a little bit older in middle school, I had ideas. I had ideas of what I could do, what I could sell. And then Boy Scouts was heavily influential, but I'd say very young. And from there, mowing lawns, like 11, 12, 13, mowing lawns, getting $20, getting $10, getting $5. I don't think I ever got $5 for a lawn, maybe 10. But even then, that taught me to value money. But it's interesting now because a phenomenon I've noticed is that same principle of money no longer applies to the business I am doing online. There's this interesting phenomenon that occurs to where I could charge $3,000 for 3 months or 12 grand for a year and only do 2 consultations with somebody and provide them infinite amount of ROI and infinite amount of value. And that same $3,000 that I might make from a quarterly payment can go so far Everybody complains about inflation, but that $3,000 compared to what I was making mowing a lawn for an hour's worth of work, that $10, I'm like, there's no comparing that. And that's where it's like making your money work for you to where you can save time. For example, whenever I bought land and created content off of that, I went and visited the properties. I bought them without touring them. And I had, somebody put together the vlog. I'm like, hey, Thomas, he's on my team. And I said, can you do a vlog out of this? So I filmed it. He edited it. I had it, saved me time. And that's just one very, very simple example of how you can take the money that you make and put it to work for you to where it saves time to where now you're getting that time back because you don't have to be that do it. You're all, the Da Vinci man to where you have to do every single thing. And I come from the upbringing to where if something was broken around the house, you don't pay a plumber. You do it, you fix it yourself. If something was going on, you did it yourself. If you needed to add a loft or something, you did it yourself. Needed the lawn cut, you do it yourself. But I realized that is a poor man's mindset. Nothing wrong with going out and being able to get your hands dirty and being willing to. But the moment that you realize you don't have to is the moment that you now get control. And now you realize that your time can be back to you to where now you could spend your time doing something more important, more pressing.
Passing it on to the next blue collar dude shooting for his goals.
Exactly. And then you're able to be a mentor to him without even realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a lot of the people your age having that kind of hunger and that kind of drive to do this kind of stuff, to make the kind of money that you're shooting for?
I don't see many people of any age with that. And that might sound egotistical, but I don't share my actual goals with people. Typically, I don't. And there have actually been many books that I've read, and one of them was by Genevieve Berend from the 1920s. And she said that the moment that you share your goals with another human being, it gives it less energy because you speak to get problems off of your chest. You don't speak to create. And that was a paraphrase of it. But my actual goals would make most people uncomfortable. And they make me uncomfortable to a degree. But I'm also that like psychotic, dude who's like, I don't want to aim for the million. I want to aim for the billion. But it's like, I also realize I got time on my side, which is a blessing not everybody who's older might have. Now, given you could be 40 and still become very wealthy. Jeff Bezos, I believe, was in his 30s when he started Amazon. But people my age, man, it's sad because we have this very politically correct, weak-minded culture to where, and given some political correctness is great, but if you were to take and put a shovel in their hand or put a hammer in their hands, they wouldn't know what the fuck to do with it. And I've noticed that in my own life, and I could not imagine being like that. Now, given if you come from money, you never had to, but I think that's fault of the parent, because even if you come from money, your parent should still teach you the bare basics of making a dollar or working for something. And to me, that's scary. To me, that's sad because, and three, it's also interesting because it puts me in a place where now maybe I could be that light for somebody who is younger looking up and saying, oh, one of the best experiences I had this year was going back home to Jacksonville, went on a camping trip with my buddies. We built a hell of a campfire and I was breaking wood. I'm taking the axe, I'm swinging the axe. I'm like, man, I miss this because I'm sitting behind my desk, all day. That's my business. But people my age and even older, I think that it's just this ignorance, and it's a blind ignorance that isn't their fault. It's the fault of the parent. And I think that a lot of it can be attributed to the lack of culture because America has no culture. It doesn't. Every other country does. America has been made off of the cultures of other nations. Might sound a little bit left to say, but it's true. Pizza, Italian. It's like we can look at our cuisines and the food we eat, to the buildings that we build. A lot of them are influenced by, other places. You go to Arizona, you go to New Mexico, you'll see architecture that was influenced by Mexico and South America, and so it's like seeing that and just this lack of pride has led to this sense of I deserve all of this without having any sense of getting it. And this lack of understanding of the economy, for example, a lot of the people who wanted $15 an hour are now the people bitching about gas. So it's like there are a lot of different things that we could have a conversation about, and a lot of different issues. And I think it's important to also focus on maybe the push and the need for personal development and marketing, or not marketing, but finance courses being prerequisites for graduation. It's like those are different things that need to be encouraged, and kind of this understanding of security in self rather than security on the government, security on things around you.
Damn.
These are some conversations I was not anticipating having, but I'm glad we're having them.
So your goals, we don't have to talk about them, but it's kind of something I ask anyway. So the goals that you set, do you set them incrementally, or do you set big goals and just fucking chow down?
Fascinating. So I've recently gone through and made some different changes in my own life. And so I set accomplishments. I don't set goals. That's another thing. I use goals because it's a common term, but they're actually accomplishments. And I write them as if they're already accomplished. Something my mentor, Bob Proctor, always taught. Hey, his mentor's mentor, it's like write them as if they are already completed. And so I do that with my goals. And it might sound, oh, you're ignorant, you're stupid for doing that. No, it's like, why not act as if they already happened? And so when they happen, I won't be surprised because I'm like, I already saw this. This is fine. And I do set them incrementally. I do per day, right? So I have micro goals, I have short-term goals, I have medium-term and long-term and lifetime. So it's like micro would be like per day or per week. Short-term would be a month, medium would be a year, long-term would be 3 years, lifetime would be lifetime, right? I set them in 3-year increments though, because after that 3-year mark, everything that's been done in my journey has happened in a matter of 4 years, with most of my momentum in the past year and a half. So how can I possibly understand and put a perspective on where I'll be 3 years from now? I can't. So I set my kind of the idea of where I want to be 3 years from now. So by the time 2024, my accomplishment is making $1 million per month. $12 million a year, right? So I have that 3 years out, but I don't have the 4-year goal or the 5-year goal. But now my lifetime, I do understand how big I want to take this from a lifetime perspective.
I think that's pretty good. I mean, that should be some advice to take if there's any, to set yourself kind of incremental goals during the day to make sure that you're keeping your own mentality set to where, hey, I'm doing what it makes you it gives you that shot of, and what is it called? Endorphins. Is that what we're
endorphins, the dopamine hit? Yeah.
Dopamine hit. Yeah. You get that dopamine hit and it makes you happy. And so I think it's very important for people to remember that, you once you hit that goal, the bar has been set and it's got to climb. You can't set those goals and it be on a plain level. It's got to be on a steep climb. Think of it as a treadmill and you're trying to get to the top of the hill. And you're just going, you're going, well, you hit that quarter mile mark, it lets you level out for a minute. It's like, yeah, great. I can be happy with that. And then you keep going back up. You always want to set your bar higher and higher and higher. And I think a lot of people are getting skewed by that, and they're not doing that. They don't wake up with the mentality that, hey, I need to be hungry. I need to be the lion that needs to eat.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, it's looking for that next target. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what a goal is. It is a goal post, a target you're getting to. Think about a football field. You have the 5-yard line, the 10-yard, the end goal. So it's like, those are different marks. Whenever you're playing a football game, you want to do the Hail Mary, but at the same point, you also want to get to the first down. And where is the first down? That is your target. That is your target. That is your target. Return kick. Okay. That is my target. And so when it comes to just on a day-to-day, and it's funny because a lot of my progress has been birthed in chaos, because that's how I've always operated. I've always operated in a chaotic family, chaotic background, chaotic, just everything. Everything has been chaotic, and I've learned how to thrive to an extent in that chaos. But I do find comfort in setting, kind of having an idea, having a direction that I need to go in the midst of that chaos. And I think whenever you're going, and I think being used to chaos is also a blessing in today's world because everything's chaotic. So it's like whenever something happens, being able to control your energy in a situation, let's say something's going wrong, maybe on the work site, you stub your toe, right? You're wearing steel toe boots. So let's say you jam your finger or something. You could either get pissy, and make that mess up your day, or you could say that hurt and cuss a few minutes and then move on with the rest of your day. But you're not going to, for the next hour complain, oh, I hit my thumb. I hit my thumb. And then everybody's going to make fun of you. No, it's like you're on to the next thing. I think that's also important with life. And I've had some things over the past 3 months that have been quite disrupting. And I've had to really practice not focusing on those disruptions so I could stay focused on getting the positive results and continuing to move forward and make that progress that I need.
Nice. Dang.
I want an audio bite with just you saying that.
What?
Just you taking a long sigh and just, damn, like that.
I'm just like, I'm just amazed. I'm like, man, because I've had these conversations with these kids, man, about your age, and I hate to say it, kids, but I'm 33, so. And I don't learn anything from them. And this conversation is just opening my eyes. And I'm like, wow, this young man right out of coming out of high school, before he even got out of high school, just hustling and kept that hustle going, didn't get caught up in the bullshit, didn't get caught up with his friends, going down that path. And look at you now. You got your goals. You got your set. Now you.
Oh, there were some moments like that, though. There were some moments about that, but I chose not to stay in them. A lot of people choose to stay, and that's where they go wrong.
Right.
I don't think that there's anything innately wrong with dabbling into certain things to get that off your chest, kind of thing. But at the same point, when you stay there, that's where people go wrong, because now all of a sudden they make it a habit. Habits turn into a lifestyle. And a lifestyle is much more difficult to break. A lifestyle is much more difficult to break than you would think. And a lifestyle is also much more difficult than it is to reestablish than you would think.
Yeah, just look at smoking cigarettes. You smoke cigarettes for 30 years. It's just part of your daily habit. And
exactly.
Just trying, like I saw my dad, he just dropped it. I know I'll never figure out how he did it. But he just quit after 50-something years of smoking. Just walked out of the doctor and stopped. I wish I could. Wish I could stop smoking. That'd be great.
Well, I actually lost, if I'm being quite personal, I don't think I've ever talked about this, is I actually lost my grandfather young. He was 63 when he died. He died 2 years ago. And he smoked from the age of like 9. Literally from the age of 9 up until the day that he died. And then he was overweight and led to one heart issue, led to one issue, to another, to another, to another. And there becomes a point where you feel so broken, so beaten, so defeated that you fail to recover because of all this mental thing. And you don't know no better. And you think that it's hopeless. And I've seen that happen so many different times. And even with people and family with things that are more dangerous than cigarettes. It's like having that addicted, and I have a very addictive personality, and that can be problematic in different areas. But I've also seen alcoholism on a different side of the family. I've seen these different things, and there's never a time to where you just have this conversation. But I've also seen that, which has made me aware. If I'm going to drink alcohol, there's a limit. I'm not going to cross that limit. And whenever I have a situation where maybe I cross that threshold, let me not do that again. Let me not do that again. And there was a time where I was hanging out with those kids and they were entrepreneurial and they were hustlers, and come to find out he wasn't entrepreneurial. That's called a drug dealer. And I'm like, shit. And I was ignorant because I come from a very conservative background. I come from a very overly protective background where I didn't know no better. But then I realized that I'm not staying in that situation. I'm gonna get out of that. And I see your movements. You're like, holy, where did we just go there?
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. I'm listening. My wife just walked in. She
okay. Well, she walked in at a crazy point in the conversation. But again, it's like choosing to stay there is where you go wrong.
Right. Yeah, she brought me dinner. Sorry. This is going to stay in the episode too. No, but it's good that no, okay. No, but it's good that you've learned from that, and you came from it, and you took that right choice. And a lot of people these days don't make that right choice, unfortunately, and they get down that habit and find out that the friends that they think they had just up and leave them, and now they're fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no easy way to say it, going down that path is just bad. I've seen it myself too, and I feel you there, because I've seen close family members that struggle with that, and so yeah, it's a rough lesson to learn, watching the loved ones go through that, and the transformation that they have from the drugs. It's a horrible thing. But anyway, we're going to get back onto a lighter note. Let's talk about your book.
What about it?
Okay. Personal branding, a manifesto on fame and influence. I was going to grab it, and it slipped my mind.
Shame on you, Jonah.
I know. But you can tell me about it, and I'm still probably going to get it. I'm probably going to get the signed copy, because I've been sending all the authors I have on. I'm going to get their books, send them to them, get the signature, and get my collection going. That's kind of something I want.
We could do that. We could definitely do that. So I wrote my very first book, came out last year, November 1st, 2021, called Personal Branding, a Manifesto on Fame and Influence. And so I wrote the book. It's a short read. It'll take the average reader an hour and a half or less, as a book of philosophies, as a book of strategies that will extend past social media. A lot of times authors write books that are, they apply today. They apply with how the algorithms are. They apply with what is hot in the media. Podcasts might not be around a decade from now. But if somebody wrote a book on podcasts, it's what? The shelf life is a decade. But past that, it's no longer worth picking up and reading. So I wanted to write a book that would stand the test of time, number one. And number two, would kind of help people understand what personal branding is. Because most people don't understand the first thing about it, or they have misconceptions about it, myths about it. And so I wanted to cover the what and why of personal branding. Why should you build it? And I wrote it. It became the number one new release and a top 10 bestseller in public relations on Amazon. Hundreds of copies. And it's been really, really great, man, for my first book. And I'll eventually do a second edition of that a couple years down the road and expand on it. But it was good. And it's something I wanted to do for quite some time.
How long did it take to write that book?
Honestly, only a couple of months. And it wasn't like I was sitting down 8 hours a day. Now, given if I was, might have been more than, less than 100 pages. However, I don't know if the quality would have been there. Now, I will say the writing process wasn't time consuming. Getting up to the point where I had the idea for it, and the first sentence of it was. Because I, just like my businesses, went through half a dozen or more businesses. I went through half a dozen or more titles and ideas for a book, concepts, topics. And as soon as I stood with the idea of personal branding, started going through names of it, then I started to go. And I had one moment, and I was out for a walk, and I was going down, I was walking out on the path, and I had the idea, what if I told you that there was something so powerful? And that was like the first line. I'm like, hang on now. And then I put that in my notes. And then a couple weeks later, I wrote the second or third sentence, and it kind of started to flow from there. I think finding the first sentence, the way to start, is the most difficult part. Having the idea of it is also difficult. And then writing is, in my opinion, is the easy part, the easy idea.
I had a fucking question. You know when you have that good question, and then you're like, fuck.
I've been there.
I mean, it threw me off, and then I was like, oh, shit. Fuck, what was I going to guess?
I blame your wife.
Yeah, she fucking threw it all off. She threw that food right there. She should have just
Snap back to reality, Jonah.
Yeah, she should have just thrown it in the refrigerator and said, "Here you go, fucking." Okay. Anyway, fuck. Music. That's what it was. You said something about being a little bit into music. What do you do in the music industry?
I was in the industry for about half a year. Wanted to do a record label, managed 3 artists at one point. One of them that I stood with, for longer than other. It was before the pandemic. We started to work together, and we ended up stopping to work together afterwards because he was throwing a concert, and I was going to fly out. I was living in Bakersfield, California. I was going to fly out to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and have the concert. And he sold it out. It was going to be a small, couple 100 people event. And with the pandemic going on, we're like, well, I don't know if this would be a good idea. And this was when nobody knew anything, if it was like the zombies, the end of the world, or if it was like the common cold. And so we decided to, kind of take a little bit of a break. And then I got out of the industry. And honestly, I think that if it wasn't for the pandemic, I wouldn't have gotten into personal branding and launching Mashman Ventures, because I probably would have stayed in the music industry. But part of the reason I moved out of it and didn't stay and stick through it is I knew that it would take a long time to make any sort of money. Wouldn't it be the proper vehicle? It's more of the thing that you do after you have the fame, after you have the influence, after you have the money, because of the amount of investments that it takes to get going, especially from a marketing standpoint. And it was a lot of fun. But, music's a big part of my life, because to focus, I listen to music. To work out, I a lot of times listen to music or listen to a podcast. And I was that like, chubby white kid in 6th grade in computer class, blasting Rick Ross and listening to Lil Wayne in my headphones because I couldn't listen to it at home. So I'm like, any chance that I got, I'm listening to secular music. And I liked music because of the feeling, and it was a form of visualization, and it still is a form of visualization, because you have somebody who's talking about something that aligns with your own interest to a degree, to where it's saying, hey, I like this as well. It creates a feeling, a sense of memory. There are certain songs that might make you tear up because it reminds you of somebody. And so the music industry, man, was a lot of fun, but not a business that I would have wanted to stay in long term.
What's your go-to song? When
my go-to song?
In traffic, pissed off, what's that song that you have to bring up? It's like, I got to listen to this or I'm going to freak the fuck out.
For a long time, it used to be, Lil Wayne and Drake, any of the songs that they did together, right above it is a classic. Trophies is great. But then it evolved, and I have a vast, like taste for music. I'll go from like hard rock, alternative rock, to rap, to literally 3-6 Mafia, to Paul Wall, to listening to jazz, to listening to just music that has no lyrics. I little known fact is I also absolutely love Suicide Boys. I like the underground rap sound. I like that kind of emo, like treading the line of emo, dark kind of stuff. So it's like sometimes if I'm like particularly pissed off, or I need to get like super focused and like charged, I'll listen to the lowest vibrational energy possible, which is that depressed rap. But for some reason that creates that feeling of like, all right, let me go get something done. And so you stumped me with that question, man, because I have so many different tastes and so many different, it depends on the mood. I have a different song for every mood.
Okay. So what are do you have certain music that you listen to for different things that you're doing? Like if you're working out, do you have to have that upbeat playlist that's always going?
No, because when I'm working out, I typically listen to podcasts. I don't listen to music. I used to only listen to music, but then I realized that I could focus better on what I'm doing listening to a podcast, because I'm able to hear my breathing still. I'm able to still take in, and I like listening to podcasts while I'm doing these things, because it makes me feel like a complete badass saying I'm getting 2 things done rather than just 1 thing done. So I'm doing it with a purpose, with an intent. And so I do have some great podcast recommendations I'd give people. So when it comes to specific things, though, it varies on my mood. It's not like I have to listen to the same thing. I'm far too complicated for that.
So what's your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast would have to be, I bounce between a few different ones. I'd have to say my favorite of all time would have to be the Ed Milet Show. The Ed Milet Show is my all-time favorite, followed up by probably the Cardone Zone with Grant Cardone. He has a lot of great conversations. And my third would be treading the line of, it would vary between Jordan Belfort's podcast, The Wolf's Den, or Lewis Howes' The School of Greatness. Those are some really, really great podcasts that I would recommend everybody listen to.
Will you say the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show so I can edit all that out?
And I will also say, guys, you need to make sure you hit that subscribe button to this podcast right here. Make sure that you're listening to this. You rate, review, and subscribe. Leave a 5-star. Otherwise, Jonah's going to track me down, find me, and come to my house and tie me up. So make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the show. ASAP, all right?
No, this guy's cool. I've been listening, Lynn, and learning a lot from this guy. That's why I brought him on, because you, sir, are a very interesting fellow. And I foresee you going a long way, hopefully. And so,
hopefully, I appreciate that.
On that note, I'm going to ask you the famous question. What has been the most enlightening moment of your life? Man, I did an interview this morning he was asking some really great questions. And lately I've been getting some really great guests, your host, just asking me some questions that have stumped me, and it doesn't happen often. Most enlightening moment was when I traveled overseas. Number one enlightening moment. I was the first person in my immediate family to ever cross the pond, go to a different country. And I went to France one summer, crazy story that I'm not going to get into. But it changed my eyes, and I was there for a month and a half, to the different cultural differences, to the history. You could walk down the same path that the Romans walked down once upon a time, So I'd say that moment also opened up my eyes to say, hey, I don't have to live in America. And it might piss some people off, but honestly, it's like that would be a real thing that I would consider dual citizenship with somewhere. Because there's this entire world that's out there to be discovered with different foods, different cuisines, different cultures, different beliefs, different benefits, different views, different skies, different sunsets, different nights. And there was a moment where I was walking and I'm looking up at the sky and I'm like, it was so clear you could see the satellites flashing. And I'm thinking, whoa, like eating grapes off of the vine in a vineyard and eating olive spread. And I'm like, I almost wish I never left. But then again, I'd never be on the path and never have my girlfriend, never have the people in my life that I have today if I never did. So again, that was probably one of the most enlightening, eye-opening experiences ever. And I'm sure it's going to change as you get older, because you're headed down quite the interesting path there, sir.
No, I've had some others that are very eye-opening too in different ways, business-wise, financially, things of that nature. But that's the thing. You're consistently growing and having those new experiences.
Mm-hmm. But there will always be that one that trumps them all.
Yep.
Well, man, it's about time we start wrapping up. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I look forward to talking with you again, and hopefully you come back and share some more stuff once you get down that road and start learning more about this real estate stuff. That'd be interesting to talk about.
I'd love to, man. And Jonah, it's been great. I appreciate you inviting me on once again.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I got to learn about you, and you've been surprising me. I learned a lot on this episode.
Good. I did something right.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. You can find us on Facebook, The Blue Collar Enlightenment Show, and at The BCE Show on Twitter. Give us a follow, and remember to message us about what you think about the podcast. It goes a long way. Thanks for listening.